Alright, welcome back to All Cars Y'all. I am John. It is time for another reaction video to a Motorweek retro review. And this is a little bit different for me. It's the 2005 Mitsubishi Evolution MR. Now this is odd for me for a couple of different reasons. The first is it's a little newer than I like to do. The second thing is I like boring cars. Those are the ones that pluck at my heartstrings from the past, those old K cars and things like that. So something that's hopped up like this, well, I'm doing it for those two reasons. First is that, well, this fulfills my Fast and Furious fantasies. Okay. And the second thing is I kind of love it. Let's take a look. Grab your beverage of choice, sit back in that comfy chair. Let's take a trip not too far back into memory lane.
Motorweek is made possible by Lucas Oil, Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper, and TireRack.com.
In the sport compact car segment, Mitsubishi's Lancer Evolution is one of the absolute top dogs. With 276 horsepower, sophisticated all-wheel drive, and hyper-aggressive styling, it is a must-have for many serious motorheads. But Mitsubishi knows that performance fans are never really satisfied, so the Evolution keeps evolving. And the result is the 2005 Evolution MR Edition. Is this the ultimate Evo? It's certainly the most complex, which should give the 2005 Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution MR serious appeal with the tech-mad sport compact crowd. The most tantalizing features are MR-specific, but the MR's Evolution 8 and RS stablemates both get the latest power upgrades too. The 2-liter...
Wow, they are running through this, aren't they? So let's go back here a little bit. And styling-wise, I absolutely love it. I do. I love the fact that they put a grill on it and they just made it a big hole with the intercooler beneath it. I love the side styling of it. I love the rear. I love the tail lights. Heck, I even love the, let's call it a whale tail, but the big old tail on the end of it. The funny thing about Mitsubishis are that they've been so hit and miss. They've had so many really good cars in the 80s and the 90s and early 2000s. And unfortunately, things like Hondas and Toyotas have always overshadowed them. And I think this is a lack of focus on Mitsubishi's part. I think it's a lack of leadership on Mitsubishi's part. They were so close to being excellent, and they ended up going the cheap route. But they really built some fantastic stuff. They just, there were just a couple of things missing along the way. And I love this. And the Lancers that I've driven, sat in, I've always loved them for their honesty, honestly. Not the Evolution, right? Just the base ones. Would, in 2095, 2002, would I pick a Mitsubishi over a Honda, a Toyota, or even a Nissan? Yeah, probably not. But when you sit in them, you know, the plastics are a little cheaper, everything just feels a little cheaper, but it's hard to describe the appeal of it, to me, anyway. I think it's more honest than what Toyota did. I think it's more clean, even many times, than what Honda did. And it's way better in quality than what Suzuki or Isuzu was pumping out. And so these basic level cars end up with a really appealing appliance feeling. They're not so cheap you hate them like, say, a Geo Metro, and they're not pretending to be something else. They just do what they're supposed to, and I love it. Now, once you get up to the more hopped-up versions, like the Evo, or when you look at Subaru, the WRX and above, I've always preferred the Evo. I love the styling. I love the angular styling. I love the clean styling. It doesn't look as goofy as Subaru. There's very little about this car that I don't like. Again, if I was transported to 2005 and I was like, here, go buy a basic car, would I pick the Mitsubishi over a Honda or a Toyota? No. But do I love it? Yeah, and I'd love to have one.
It's both get the latest power upgrades too. The 2-liter dual overhead cam 4-cylinder now spits out 276 horsepower and 286 pound-feet of torque. That's 5 horses and a healthy 13 pound-feet more than the 2004 engine. While the RS and Evo 8 get by with 5 cogs in the gearbox, the MR features a new close-ratio 6-speed manual. The extra power is then channeled through a full-time all-wheel drive system that trades in the old viscous unit for a new multi-plate active center differential that augments the limited slip differential in the front. To further exploit the MR's power, Mitsubishi engineers equipped the McPherson strut front and multi-link rear suspension with Bilstein monotube dampers and bolted on lighter 17-inch BBS forged alloy wheels. The MR's ready-to-rumble body is also lighter thanks to an aluminum roof and door beams that also help lower the car's center of gravity for enhanced stability.
So before they go on, what an amazing car, right? I will be honest with you. I love the Fast and the Furious movies. I really, really do. And I love seeing their transition over the movies to becoming heist movies. The past few have been truly terrible, okay? And you know me, if you've been on this channel before, you know that I am far more likely to go buy a 2005 Buick than I am one of these. Because this is going to be rough riding and probably noisy. But getting that power from that little engine, powered through all-wheel drive, you know, there's really only a couple of companies doing that. This is a technological tour de force, and I respect it so much. Would I want to be Dom back in Fast and Furious and drive one of these every single day of my life? No, absolutely not. No, I want cushy, right? I want something softer than this. But if it came down to this, and a supercharged old Mustang, I'd much rather have this. What an amazing time that Mitsubishi, after the economic downturn in the 90s in the Japanese market, that they still came out with this to compete against Subaru. They had some cojones to continue to fight for market share, to continue to fight in little niches. And I respect this car for that reason. I think it looks great. I really do. And I just respect them for coming out with it.
Roof's trailing edge wears vortex generators which smooth out the airflow to the Evo's large rear wing. All this together makes the MR capable of a 0 to 60 time of 4.7 seconds and a quarter-mile run of 13.3 seconds at 103 miles per hour. That's about a half second quicker than the last Evolution 8 that we tested.
Wow. So they compare it to the Evolution 8. I would love to see how that compares to the WRX. So let's talk about the WRX real quick. Arguably, for Mitsubishi fans, I'll go ahead and say this, the Subaru is probably better. I think as an everyday live-with-it kind of car that gives you some oomph, the Subaru is probably better. But I think this one looks better. I always have. And those numbers are pretty astounding, actually. I hope at the end they give it this some kind of context to, you know, what does a Mustang do in 2005? What does a Porsche do? I mean, give this some context, because those are astonishing numbers. They really, really are. Really impressive, actually. Really, really impressive engineering. And I'd like to add, with a manufacturer warranty on it. That's what's really astounding about all this. This is not you bought a base Lancer and you've taken it somewhere and they've hopped it up and you're kind of hoping it doesn't blow up. This is from the manufacturer. Really impressive. Really cool.
Heading down the main straight of Georgia's Roebling Road Raceway, the MR delivered a smooth launch requiring fewer revs and less clutch slip than the Evo 8. The 6-speed gearbox is also much more positive, with the shifter requiring less effort on both up and down shifts. In the turns, the engine also spins up fast and smooth, and thanks to the front diff, pulls hard through corner exits. Fast corner entries reveal very mild front push, with the 13-to-1 ratio rack and pinion steering delivering plenty of feel and allowing very precise direction changes. The MR's chassis feels light, but like the Evo 8, still very predictable, inspiring tremendous confidence in fast corners and giving it a very tossable feel in the slower bends. The sticky 235/45 series Yokohama tires delivered tons of lateral grip even in low temperatures, and body roll is almost non-existent. Braking is by the same Brembo 4-wheel disc and 4-piston front calipers as the Evo 8. Like the MR's other systems, they deliver high levels of feedback and plenty of power. When we could finally pry our drivers off the track, we found the Evolution MR to also be a superb street car. The engine's flatter power band makes it easier to drive in traffic, requiring less time dancing on the clutch and shifter. Ride quality is less harsh than on the Evo 8 thanks to the added Bilstein struts and shocks. The MR is easily comfortable enough for everyday use, and with up to 50% of the torque available at the rear wheels, the MR is also all-weather capable. The MR...
What a fantastic overall review. That basically that it's such a great track vehicle. It's light, it's tossable, it's structurally rigid. The mechanical bits all do their job so well. Again, it would be awesome to see this as a back-to-back with a Subaru comparison. And then, when you need to drive it as an everyday small sedan, it does great. Much more positive than I expected. I expected more negative reviews about some driveline thrash or turbo spool up or harsh ride or something like that, and they didn't really come out with it. Let's see the interior.
The MR's interior is not so much comfortable as capable, efficient, and sporty. MR-specific features include an optional package with aluminum and carbon fiber trim for the brake handle, aluminum shifter and sport pedals, and a satellite gauge cluster in the center stack that includes turbo boost bolts and oil pressure. The MR standard Recaro sport seats provide plenty of support and hold you tight in hard corners, but are definitely shaped for slimmer bodies. They face a standard Momo steering wheel, large clear gauges, idiot-proof climate controls, and either a standard 140-watt CD stereo or optional 315-watt 7-speaker Infinity system.
Before they move on to the back seat, there's not much there at the front seat, the dashboard, the gauges that I have an issue with. You know, the satellite gauges, as they called it. Yeah, that's fine. You know, they got to put them somewhere. The seats bother me, but if I keep in mind this is the sportiest of the sport models, this is not something that I would go buy to tootle around in every single day with the minimal amount of monthly cost. The seats, I love this center color down through the middle with the little dimples. Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that almost as much as the squiggles that were on Volkswagens in, I think, the 2000s, right? But the Recaro seats, unnecessary for me, holds slimmer frames. Well, not really going to fit me. But the dash is a vision of simplicity. It really is. They didn't talk about like the headlight control or the windshield wipers or cruise control or anything else. I don't love the steering wheel, but it is a sport model. So recognizing that I would be looking at something below this, But in terms of functionality for every day, absolutely fantastic. This is really a solid car. It really, really is. Let's see what they say.
Vehicle features include a rear cabin with adult-sized dimensions. And while the rear seat back is fixed, the trunk has a reasonable 10.2 cubic feet of cargo space.
Yeah, before they go on, so looks like from that picture, that video, good space in the back. But they said a fixed back seat, major negative, and then 10.2 cubic feet cargo space. A little sad, actually. That's. I think the seat back is probably fixed for structural rigidity issues, but good space in the back seat, okay in the trunk, but not great.
Which makes the Evolution MR a pretty appealing machine for drivers who want serious performance, but like most of us, can't afford separate cars for work and play. Still, you must part with at least $35,274 to make the Lancer Evolution MR your one and only. Add our car's MR trim package and the tab is $36,074. Figure that the MR is $4,000 more than an Evolution 8 and a hefty $7,500 more than the Evolution RS. However, if you can swing the payments, the 2005 Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution MR is one very sweet and hot ride. One that has evolved to meet the demands of today's pickiest performance fans and become Mitsubishi's ultimate Evo, at least until next year.
That price? Oh my God. Wow. Excuse me. But what are they thinking? Maybe that's for you, right? Maybe in 2005, this was for you and you loved it and you were willing to pay that premium for it. But for me, as much as I love that car, it would be very easy to talk myself down the price range because I don't need the incremental improvements along the way. That RS for $7,500 less, that sounds really good all of a sudden, but that's still really expensive for 2005. I love the idea of this car. I love the idea. You've got something that all that power, you could take it tracking, you could race it, you could get out of danger, right? The active safety that comes with all that power, manual transmission, all-wheel drive, and it's four-door. Throw some stuff in the back, throw some stuff in the trunk, and go up to the mountains for a weekend. I really, really like the idea of this car. But it's horribly overpriced. Excuse me, that's not fair. It is very expensive. I'm not going to say it's overpriced for the technology it had wrapped into it. If you compare this with a Porsche, right, or a Corvette, all of a sudden it makes a lot more sense. But that's not the perspective I personally look at it. Would I buy this over the Subaru? I don't know. If I went back to 2005 and I was looking between these two cars, would I get the Mitsubishi? There's always that hesitancy about Mitsubishi, about their quality, about their reliability, and I don't have that about Subaru. And Subaru was, I think, the more refined choice. But I like the look of the Mitsubishi better. I don't know which one I'd choose, honestly. If you were in that situation in 2005 and you had a choice, let me know which one you chose, and if you got the Mitsubishi, how was it for you? Because I said at the beginning, this car makes me sad. And I touched on it earlier in the video. And it makes me sad because there was a time when Mitsubishi really shot for the stars. Right? When you look at the 80s and the 90s, if another manufacturer, Toyota or Nissan, for example, were doing it, Mitsubishi did it too. They want a small car, they had it. Midsize, they had it. Move upscale, well, they had the Diamante. to compete with, say, the Mazda 929, while Lexus and Infiniti went up into luxury. Want an off-roader? Mitsubishi had one. Want a truck? They had one. They touched everything in the market. They were there with everybody else. They were above the Suzukis and the Isuzus, but never quite as successful as the Nissans. And I think that's a failure of Mitsubishi as a whole and Mitsubishi leadership and their investment into autos in North America. But they eventually decided they just wanted to make basic stuff, go for the 80% of sales, not the 100% of sales, and start chasing money. And they ran into a lot of problems by lying about several things and the lending money to people who couldn't actually afford to buy any cars. And they really made a lot of mistakes. And now they've got some okay SUVs, and they've had to partner with Nissan to get additional platforms and things to work with. So they've given up this sense that they could conquer the world and be a major player. They've shrunk into themselves. And it makes me really sad because this car for 2005, again, the Japanese debt crisis hit in the early 90s. And so for 10 to 15 years later, for Mitsubishi to be coming out with this, that's a big swing for them. That's a big statement that they were optimistic and they were playing in the market. And what happened in the last 15 years? They've just given up. And it makes me so sad that they had this and they had all the other great cars. And now they've got the, SUV lineup. It just makes me sad. Let me know what you think below, guys. Thanks for being here.